This is a review of the mass kind of problems that we ended class with on March 29th and March 30th today. And what I'd like to do is go through them kind of quickly, maybe compare them a little bit to the ones that I just did on the previous video. So you notice in the previous video we had moles and we used the mole ratio to find our answer. In this type of problem, we're not given moles. Now remember, chemical equations tell you relationships between numbers of things. So it means that one of these reacts with 12 of those, but it does not mean that a pound of this reacts with 12 pounds of that. It's all about numbers. 1 mole, a dozen moles. Kind of like 1 egg, a dozen. One of these things reacts with a dozen of those. It's not about masses. So we have to change any mass that we're given into moles before we can actually use this mole ratio, because the mole is a number of things. So again, the chemical equation tells us one of these reacts with 12 of those to make 3 of those and 4 of those, but it doesn't say anything about what they weigh. All right, so we're going to take our 7.07 grams of CH4, and we're going to change that to moles because we can't use the mole ratio until it's in moles, and this is grams. So put grams of CH4 on the bottom, put moles of CH4 on the top, because we're changing to moles and we know that whatever's there has to go there. So 1 mole, and then we had to find how many grams are in a mole. So we have carbon has a mass of 12 off of the periodic table. Hydrogen has a mass of 1, but there are 4 hydrogens, so my total here is 16. That's the first step. We'll do the second step in green. So the second step, we had to use the mole ratio. Now we're ready because this is gone. So I have moles, and I'm ready, just like I had moles up here, so I'm ready to use this ratio between moles of what we have and moles of what we're looking for. To know what we're looking for, we had to go back up and look at the question. So it says how many grams of Al4C3. So we'd have to find moles of Al4C3 before we can find grams. This is the mole ratio. The number in front of the Al4C3 is a 1. So really there's nothing in this equation up here, over here, but since there's nothing there, it's an implied 1. And in front of the CH4, you see that there's a 3. That is the second step in a stoichiometry problem. Then the third step. The question asks us to find out how many grams of Al4C3 there are. Al4C3, by the way, is called aluminum carbide. So we'd have moles of Al4C3 down here and grams of Al4C3 on top. So we have Al is 27 times 4. This mass of aluminum is 27 times 4. Carbon is 12 times 3. So we'd have 27 times 4 plus 12 times 3. Our final mass would be 144. So to solve this problem, now we multiply all the things across the top and divide by all the numbers that are on the bottom. By the way, 1 goes in moles except in the mole ratio. Then you have to look at the equation for them in a mole ratio. So 7.07 times 144. Then we're going to divide by 16 and divide by 3. So we end up with 21.21. That'd be grams of Al4C3. So then we go back and type in our answer, 21.21. And we check our answer, and we find out that that is the correct answer. All right, so we might do one more. Let's go to new problem. Let's do one that looks crazier than that. That one looks kind of crazy. Let's do this one. All right, so roll that up. Keep it where we can see it. All right, so this question says you have 34.4 grams of water. So you'd have 34.4 grams of H2O. You have to change that to moles, so you put grams of water on the bottom and moles of water on the top. Again, grams are on the bottom, so they cancel. 1 goes with moles, except in the mole ratio, and the number of grams in 1 mole of water is 18. Now we're ready for the mole ratio. So we change it to moles so that we can compare using the numbers in our equation up at the top. We know that moles of water go on the bottom. And on the top, we're going to put moles of what we're looking for. Now, once again, this can be a little confusing because we have, it asks for how many grams. And normally you just put grams on top over here, but we need to find moles before we can find grams because we need to use the ratio from the equation, which only works with moles. So we're looking for grams of C2H5 in SCl. So that's going to be this stuff here. And we have to find moles first. So we're going to put moles of C2H5 in SCl. And the number in front of that is a 4, and the number in front of the water is 10. All right, so that's the mole ratio step. That's what we began class with today, the day that I introduced stoichiometry. Now, whatever we have to do, the final step is change into grams of this compound. So moles are here, they have to go down the bottom. We'll do the third step in green. So moles of C2H5 in SCl, grams of C2H5 in SCl. Okay, it's kind of a complicated formula, so we'll get to that in a second. Okay, 1 goes with moles. And now we need to find out how many grams are in a mole. So carbon is 12 times 2. I'm going to make sure I wrote the formula down. C2H5 in SCl. 12 times 2. Hydrogen is 1. There's 5 of them. N is 14 right here. Sulfur is 32 here. And I'm going to use 35.5 for chlorine. Probably you could get by with 35, but it's kind of halfway between, and most chemists will use 35.5 for the mass of chlorine. Let me write it up here a little neater, 35.5. Because if you look at the periodic table, I think it says 35.45, which would round out to 35.5. All right, let's add all those numbers together right over here. So 12 times 2 is 24, plus 5, plus 14, plus 32, plus 35.5. So I get 110.5. So that is 110.5. All right, so now we're ready to do the math. So we just multiply everything across the top and divide by everything on the bottom. So we would have 34.4 times 1 times 4 times 110.5. And that's the top number. Then divide by everything that's on the bottom, divide by 18, and then divide again, divide again by 10. And then divide by 1, but that doesn't change anything. So my final answer is 84.5. I rounded it off to 3 sig figs like that. So 84.5, and the unit would be grams of C2H5 in SCl. Let's go try plugging that in, see if it works. Put your answer in, 84.5. Check answer, and we now have 2 correct. It says that I tried 3 because I skipped 1 to get to a harder question. All right, so I think that's all I need to say about this. We're down to the, you just got to do some to practice.